All right, my name is Lindsay, and we're going to talk about misting lactobacillus in winter layer houses. I've done this work at Maplewind Farm, and this work has been mostly done in conjunction with the Land Care Cooperative, Eliza and Abe, helping us implement this. So just a little bit about Maplewind. We're basically a multi-species pasture-based livestock farm. We are in the Winooski River watershed in the Bolton Valley of the Green Mountains of Vermont. We're operating on about 180 acres, and we're primarily a pastured poultry operation. Last year, we did about 18,000 broilers on pasture, and we have a laying flock of about 1,500 laying hens. We do pigs, turkeys, and some cows as well when we got them. And a little more about Maplewind. We also have a USDA inspected poultry processing facility where we're processing all of our own poultry, as well as turkeys and broilers from 29 other farms in New England and New York. A little bit about me. I'm entering my 7th season at Maplewind this year. I've worked there in various roles. Yes, I did tip that grain trailer, and I'm smiling in that photo, but I was not smiling on the inside. I've worked there in many different capacities, from just a seasonal farm person to all the way up to farm director. Right now I'm working there in a more of a marketing capacity. Why I'm talking about this is because I helped implement the lactobacillus misting protocol while I was working there as the farm manager. So what is lactobacillus? It's basically just like a naturally deriving probiotic that's found in us, in animals, and many types of food that we eat. So yogurt, kimchi, cheese, kombucha, all of that stuff. And basically there's many uses for lactobacillus in an agricultural context. There's a lot of research saying it can grow soil rapidly. It can, stabilize ammonia and bed pack, all that kind of stuff. But the primary thing I'm going to focus on today is how implementing this strategy in our laying houses has really increased our production targets, as well as the health of our animals in a winter deep bedding pack system. So this disgusting bucket of brown liquid is the lactobacillus in a concentrated form. And we basically just make it with fermented rice water, molasses and whey. It's kind of just a process we go through. It takes a couple days. And this bucket, this 5-gallon bucket, will last like 6 months because we're diluting it to a 200-to-1 ratio in a 2-gallon sprayer. So we really only use like a 1/4 cup per day. So this is one of our winter layer houses. It's like 30 by 100 feet. We have 2 of them. We have about 600 to 750 birds in them from November to April. They do not have winter or outdoor access through that time, and they're in a deep bedding system of peat moss and hay. Anything else? Oh, and I think the important thing to say here on this is they're on a deep bedding system that we clear every summer. And what we've done with integrating lactobacillus into our program is we clear the bedding pack, obviously, every summer. And then we also power wash the inside of the house entirely in like July or August. And then we sanitize the house. And then after that process, we begin populating the environment with the lacto by just spraying it around even before the birds are coming in November. So it's really the idea of like, we want to populate the environment with beneficial bacteria and get those things established before pathogens or more negative things could establish in the house. So here's just a few photos of how we make it. So you can see that 5-gallon bucket just lives inside the barn at room temperature. We have the quarter cup. I think we just had that laying around. I think it's even a little too strong. The 1/4 cup to 2 gallons. We just had that in the barn, so we've been using it. We put in the 2-gallon sprayer, we fill it up with water, and then we do about 1 gallon per house that we're misting. And it's really easy. It's not rocket science. All we're doing is like misting this all over the bedding, the roost, the feed line, the nesting boxes. And yeah, basically just that idea of like we're populating the environment with beneficial bacteria. So can you see that video? So here's just a video of me doing it. And basically the idea of what lactobacillus is doing is it's a net positive on animal gut health, right? So it's the same thing as us, why we eat like kimchi and fermented foods. It's really just increasing their overall health, basically. There's been research shown that it can also increase like feed conversion rates in broilers, as well as promote healthy eggshell quality and maintain a high level of lay rate in layers. If you don't know, like We keep our layers for about 14 to 16 months. Through that time, we're aiming for an optimal lay rate of about an average of 80% over that whole time, but it can really fluctuate and vary. And oftentimes, like when they're inside all winter, it's stressful. There's freeze thaw cycles, right? That lay rate can really fluctuate. Other things that that has been seen in research and that we really saw was a real reduction in flock mortality as well as stress. So here are our observational findings. Obviously, this is super anecdotal and observational, right? This is not true research on this. Well, but a lot of that really exists. And I am not the person to talk to about that. That would be Abe Collins and Eliza at Landcare. They could tell you way more about that. But I have to tell you that what we saw and observed was really significant with this. It kind of blew me away, quite honestly. The biggest thing was really like there was a dramatic reduction of that ammonia odor, right? Especially during those freeze thaw cycles. We struggle with that so much. If you don't know, having animals in a confined space, those houses have fans and we open the sides, but God, it gets really moist in there a lot. And that ammonia is not optimal for those birds' health. So a significant decrease there. Another one was bird mortality went down, towards the end of the winter, like February, March. Those birds are getting really pissed off at each other, right? They're stressed, they're pecking at each other, they're not having a great time. We saw that bird mortality went down and they were a lot less stressed. Megan's yelling at me to stop, and lay rate remained really high. It was cool. And the eggshells were really, really strong. These are just some common questions I've gotten on Instagram posting about this. No, it didn't add significant moisture. Yes, the birds kind of get sprayed directly, and pump sprayers suck. So if anyone has a good one, let me know. Yay!
Hello, yes, I'm Leon Atwell. I'm from Central New York on the edge of the Adirondacks, a little north of Utica. My wife and I run a farm, Grassy Cow Dairy. I started in 95. I got a few points here, key things that helped through the years, little highlights. 95, 36 cows, conventional, pastured as much as I could. 2000 started grazing. 2003 recognized low input. Previously that I had close to a 23,000 pound herd average, wasn't making any money, barely getting by. Once 2003 happened and I went to low input, I was off to the races. 2007, I started outwintering bred heifers. Kind of an unheard of thing around my area. My father told me they'd be wild and I'd never milk them. He was wrong. 2011 built a parlor that allowed me to milk cows much more efficiently and expand more. My goal wasn't an expansion, but it was to try to graze as much of my farm as I could. My home farm is 135 acres right there, easily accessible. It took a few years, but by the mid 2000s, I was not harvesting hay off of that. Jump forward, 2014, started outwintering. I went seasonal in 13, started outwintering the whole herd once I dried up in January. And in case you don't know, we're just off the edge of the Tug Hill. We get generally 150 to 200 inches of winter. It's not unheard of to have quite a bit more depending on the year. 2015, my wife and I started a creamery, which we ran for 8 seasons. We closed that in 22. Whole nother subject, super rewarding, a lot of work. We get forward to around 22. I started focusing more on rotating my dry herd around my farm as the weather permitted. Unrolling bales at the farthest points, hauling water if I had to. Never thought I'd haul water. Really not that bad when that's your only chore other than unrolling bales. Should show you some pictures. Picture on the left here is last winter when we had one of our 70 or 80 inch lake effect events. It was brutal. Troy happened to stop by that day and he got that picture and he took the message very quickly to get out of there. It was a little bit of a show. It was just before I dried off. A few days later, I dried off, sent the cows out into the woods, life was a lot better. When we first started, you can see the snow blower there. That's how I had to open up to get them out. The snow was that deep, I couldn't go out with a 130 horsepower tractor to drag around 1 or 2 bales behind me. But as soon as you started getting them out there, I would move over every day with a bale unroller, unroll hay. It worked very well. The cows were very satisfied. The picture to the right is pretty much the area I'd unroll for the given day, depending on the weather. I had areas closer to the woods that I'd unroll. This is out in the open. That was a rather pleasant day. The side effect of last winter is I fed approximately 200 cows on probably not more than 10 acres for 2 months. That was over 600 bales. Now I've outwintered for a lot of years. When I first started, when you put down a lot of residue, I was happy if it was gone in a year's time, year and a half. And last year, the picture in the top center where you can see the strip, that was taken in early June by Troy. That was the worst of what I had left over for residue. The lower picture with the reel in it was taken, I believe, end of August. We were terribly dry. That grass thrived tremendously. And the picture to the right was the 1st of October. The production I had there was phenomenal. You know, water infiltration off the charts. Now, do I want to do that to that ground every year? No. But if you play with your weather and hit a piece of ground like that, the changes you can have are tremendous. It's kind of shown me, and I've gone with this before with spreading manure. Like when I would go impact a field, I'll try to put a lot to a field, a lot more than you think you necessarily should, then back off. It doesn't take that much to maintain it once you got the fertility there. So I view it as if I can do more of this impact around my farm, I can double or triple my production by just using the cows and the tools I have. This year, I'm playing around with feeding them every other day. Last year, I went out every day because I didn't dare unroll the hay for multiple days because if you got a foot or two of snow, they can waste more than I'd like. But there is no wasting hay unrolling it. It gets used up by the soil. This winter I'm setting out, I unroll for a day and then I'll set out 2 or 3 days worth. That's why I'm here. I don't have to worry about feeding a cow till really Tuesday. I'll go out Monday. Maybe if I get home early tomorrow, I might go out just because that's who I am. But the benefits of the bale grazing is just to reducing the management. Cow health has improved dramatically. Being seasonal, I freshen a lot of cows. Everybody wonders how you do it. Biggest day I ever had was 18 cows. Was not a problem. If you don't have metabolic issues, the exercise of these cows walking and traveling, they don't have problems. Last year, I had an older cow that looked off all winter. I was afraid she was going to be a train wreck. She had a 140-pound calf and smiled afterwards and looked better every day. So, all right, thank you.
Hey there, Caleb Smith from Danby, Vermont. From 2009 to 2022, I milked 60 or 70 jerseys in a tie barn. In 2022, I got a bunch of sheep, and they came from some from Minnesota, others from Colorado. So I was doing that in 2022. It's been a learning process. If you want to up your animal husbandry game, get some sheep because you become a mind reader. So what I'm talking about today is a pasture scale. It's something called an OptiWave. They're manufactured in Australia. I first heard about this at a marketing school put on by an Australian outfit. And the last day of the school, they did this pitch for this machine. And I don't know if it was paid. It easily could have been. And at the time I thought, well, that's sort of a neat party trick, but I didn't really understand the value. And then as I got better, as my management improved and I started asking more questions, I came back to this idea. And so what this is this is I'm pretty sure this was the first sheep unit in North America that was imported. There were some cattle units in Canada and a couple in the States. Basically, all of my animals have RFID tags. And I forgot to say, I'm ballpark like 350 U's. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but that's about the size. So they all have RFID tags. This unit is solar powered. I feed mineral out of it. There are two pads, so two stations that you can see in this one here. So there's an RFID reader, and every day I get feedback. Now, not every animal visits every day, but over the course of like a week, most of them will visit. And I get gain data every day on those animals, and it's been a total game changer for me. The biggest thing is that for me to bring those sheep back to the barn, it may be as much as 1.5 miles on the road. And that's right. Like it's kind of an event. Also, I'm mostly just one person. Sometimes my daughter helps me. I got a dog who sometimes helps me. So anyway, there's no way I'm bringing them back every month to weigh them. I also have a portable chute, but to set that up takes and work them in that is, I mean, it's a day to do it. And then I also have questions about, well, I know they don't gain any weight the day that you do it. Well, what about, what does the gain look like on either side of that event? So yeah, this was a way to tell me, what are gains like? Are they gaining at all? Are they going backwards? And it's information I otherwise wouldn't have. So I get an email every morning at 4 a.m., which is some function of, what do you call it? Some function of the Australian thing. And so this is sort of what you get. There's another slide after this that I'll show you just because they don't all fit on one. So it says the top numbers are in the last 24 hours. This is what it saw. And these groups are ewes and lambs. You could divide it however you wanted, but I only have one unit. And so there's also settings where you can suss out just the lamb data if that's what you're looking for. But I'm also trying to keep an eye on the ewes too. So they were actually doing pretty good, right? Like out of the 175 animals that weighed in, ADG was 0.5 pound a day, which is not bad. They're all right. It's all grass. And so it's a really neat way to see trends, and it's kind of totally changed the way I manage these animals. This is the other thing that comes every day. And so the orange is the number of animals visiting per that day. And that's right. Part of that's a function of how much mineral you have in there, as long as it's well stocked. And then the green line is the mob average. And so you can see there wasn't a whole lot going on until, the third week of September. And what that was, I'm pretty sure that was a worming event where like they looked okay, but they weren't gaining. And then I wormed them because, you always have some that need it. But anyway, I wormed them, and you can see what happened to the mob average over the next month. And it's really interesting because I would have no other way of having this information without keeping them in a barn. If you had them in a barn, it would be quite easy to get. But these animals they graze over 200 acres a season. Yeah, so that's it. Oh my God. Bam.
Y'all rock.
I love this peer-to-peer learning experience. I'm inspired by you all. So I'm Bailey Drown, and I'm presenting about integrating livestock and vegetable production systems. Someone came up with the cute title, Cluck the Crop. So this is our crew. My partner, Quinn, is taking care of the animals in -10-degree weather. Thank you. I'm here. So you guys are all the lucky ones on your farm too. We are a really small farm located on historically the Nehantic land in the lower Connecticut River Valley. We're zone 6B. Last night it was -10. We're basically where the Connecticut River and the Long Island Sound kiss. So my farm is really small. I have 4.6 acres that I own. And I have about 40 acres on free lease. Basically, I do work in exchange for that land. We grossed $300,000 of food sold last year, and we feed just our neighbors. One way you could describe my farm is 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. But it's pretty neat. It has to be if it's that small. And this is what you can't see from the aerial view is what our tunnels look like inside. Most of that 300K was vegetables, but we're diversifying. We did about 100 turkeys last fall for Thanksgiving. And there are some people who've eaten my turkeys in the room. Thank you. One word to describe our turkeys. Thank you. And those turkeys were grown in this integrated system. And somebody asked me if I liked growing turkeys. Colby? We all love our livestock. I love growing every single one. But what I like about it is that going into Christmas, my bank account is full. And that's why I would encourage more of you to grow turkeys. There's a lot of demand for a Thanksgiving turkey. So our holistic goal is to feed our neighbors, and we want to be a full diet farm, Quinn and I. And that's our 10-year aspiration. This is season 13 on our farm. And we like to eat nutrient dense, high welfare meat. And vegetables are an important part of the plate as well. So we have experimented with a lot of integrations of livestock and into our vegetable production system. We have ducks in our orchard, and I think our failures are just as valuable as our successes. And then one of our failures is pigs in our tunnels. And I have a slide about that later. And I would say cows in the tunnel were also pretty bad. But the cows liked it, but the tunnels had holes in them afterwards. So, and we do have a livestock guardian dog here who is instrumental in this being successful. We're also, other than the production in the tunnels, we're also grazing a lot of our cover crops in our vegetable beds. So this is Sparkle, our family milk cow, and she's grazing oat and pea cover crop, which increases the biomass in the roots of that cover crop. One of our failures, but a really cute failure, was farrowing in one of our tunnels. Won't do that again. And one thing that is successful is grazing right up to the edge of a tunnel when you don't have a food crop in it. Can be really helpful with getting at weeds and things that you've failed to weed whack over the course of a season. So why did I want to do this? Mostly I was starting to get, after this 10 years in production, I was getting greenhouse pests, and I wanted to use the natural behaviors of our livestock to fix pest issues. We also were buying a lot of fertility, so we've eliminated our need to fertilize our tunnels. And there are a lot of other benefits, but the main consideration you have to take on here with this integration is food safety. And there's a 90 to 120 day rule, which you can learn more about if you decide to consider this. And then just your own body and the safety of the dander and dust that you're carrying around the farm. And then for your soil health, the main consideration is excessive grain spillage and poop. So we have had multiple batches of turkeys and chickens with 0 mortality. I make a slaughter date and I end up bringing more animals to that slaughter date than I purchased. And that's because every step has a lot of care. And Luca goes with me, our livestock guardian, and picks up the chicks from the post office. So we have really good protection, really good predator control. He also herds. That cattle dog is really helpful. We have a really good brooder setup, and we start introducing them to a diversified diet of vegetables early on, right in the brooder. And then they move out, they move around the farm, and we target various areas that need their help. And they get a tremendous amount of diversity in their diet. We also feed a really freshly ground grain. So here they are, freshly moved in. We also have chicken tractors for the flexibility of that. This is what it looks like when they first move in. A lot of times they still need supplemental heat, and we set that up for them in order to get that 0 mortality. It seems to be helpful in that transition, which is one of the times when you have to have heightened care for them. And then very shortly, a couple weeks in, they have taken down your crop residue. So I'm lessening the amount of work I have to do as a vegetable farmer by incorporating my livestock into that system. I take an area that has a crop residue and I fence the animals to it. We switched to bronze this year, and I'm really happy with them. And you can tell by the color and vibrancy of that animal that it's coming out of a healthy environment with a healthy diet and expressing its natural behaviors. This is what a tunnel looks like when it's done. And then we do a remediation. And this is a really important step from a farmer's perspective, is we want to digest that manure. We want it to be incorporated into the soil. And biologically, we want that manure to be safe so we can grow another crop in there. So these are our results. Really, really healthy vegetable production, super vibrant tunnels. We've had a comprehensive nutrient management plan done, and the only thing they said is don't put too many more batches too close together in your tunnels. We have 4 high tunnels and 2 low tunnels, and that can support us growing about 600 chickens and 100 turkeys per year. Because any more than that, and we will have too much nutrification that our plants can't pick up. So, and these are more profitable enterprises on our farm because we're not paying as much for infrastructure. And those remote fields, we don't have to travel to those remote fields where our pastures are. So we're seeing really good margins on those 2 species, the chickens and the turkeys. And as I said, the pigs were a problem. There are farms that do pigs successfully in tunnels and grow vegetables in them. That's not something I would recommend any of you experiment with. I've already learned the hard way for you because they create compaction. The pigs aren't happy either because they create a lot of dust, and it's just not a success, but they are cute. So these are the other resources if you're interested in trying this out. Richard Perkins is most closely aligned with what we do. Stone Barns has research on these integrations that is, more data driven. And then Polyface Farm also has done this type of integration.
Howdy, y'all. I'm not going to use the mic. The F in my F'd it is Forester.
But there's people online.
It's going to be hard.
Oh, okay.
And I know you're all grass people, but I'm here with a gateway drug for grass people into the tree world. So I had to smuggle it in. Oh, did it get stolen? Okay. So if you don't know, trees are awesome. And I've got slides maybe. If you don't know, trees are awesome and they should be in your pastures and on your farms. If you're in the Northeast, they grow great. A lot of people get analysis paralysis with silvopasture. Like, how do I start? What do I do? What species do I want? Oh, I really want to do this. Oh, I need to crop it. Oh, I need to make a bunch of money. Oh, I need to. It's all bullshit. You can get started tomorrow if you want to. Well, wait till it thaws out. The easiest way, the easiest gateway into planting trees in your pastures is what's called live staking. And this is not a new thing. I don't really put it in the category of planting trees, to be honest, but it's a good way of getting trees established or woody plants established. Paper industry, grazers in New Zealand, all over the place. You literally stab certain species of trees in the soil and they root and they grow. Closest thing to instant gratification for silvopasture. This here is actually a willow, which is a very easy one to live stake. Super commonly used, small stream bank restorations, you know, crafts, things like that. Where I'm going. Hybrid poplars, very popular in live staking for the biomass industry. They grow super fast. This one, oh, this was actually, I'll go back to that one. This one here, for reference, those are my workhorses. Those are big ass horses. That's a stake maybe about this big, grew 3 times its size in 2 years. They put on 4 to 6 feet of growth every year. And literally, you just take a sharpened stick like this of the proper species, and they're very commonly available because the paper industry uses them. You can order live stakes for like pennies on the dollar. Take a rock bar, stab it in, wiggle it around. Take this, put a post pounder on it, pound it down until it's stable. Take your tree tube. I've got tons of dirty used ones. If you need them, just come by and grab them. Like thousands. Slap your tube over, zip tie your electric fence to it, and keep them off. If you have particularly rubby critters, what we found is the aluminum electric wire, like the cheap thin stuff. You can wrap it around really easy. It stays on there. So in your training pen, you can also just use a regular, fiberglass post, as you all have. But I love this style because it's all self-supporting. Trade-off, they're trees, they're woody plants. They grow really well. They bring all sorts of benefits to your pasture, from shade, biomass, leaves, fodder, things like that. Change the soil biology. They do what I call go from vole to shrew. And if you don't know that, figure it out. It's a good direction to go in our habitats. Downside is these are short-lived, very fast-growing trees. And if you can see from this picture, they send sprouts all over the place. This is a short-term solution. It's an early successional gateway drug to trees in your pastures. So upside, downside. Downside is not a long-lived tree. I have one in my yard that's probably a hybrid poplar is probably 50 feet tall. It breaks and falls all the time. Upside, you can coppice them. Those sprouts can get then stabbed in a different place. So you have like a self-replicating thing. Again, if you have an excuse about cost, overthinking, put 1 in, put 2 in, put 10 in, whatever. And then those become 100 very quickly and 1,000. And you can also put in like thousands per hour. It's very easy and very cheap. Again, downside, it needs some maintenance. Don't plan on that being a forever tree. One more thing for that. You can integrate the longer term, like the trees you're thinking about a little too much, in these hedgerows. And these biologically are shifting towards shrew. And that's good in your soils for the next succession of trees. You can chip them, you can mulch with them. Have any of you guys, y'all folks, I should say, read Black Elk Speaks, the book? Read it. In Black Elk Speaks, he talks about it was very important for them to find wintering grounds that had willow bottoms and cottonwood bottoms, because that's what their horses survived on. So in the spring, they could get away from all the colonists. This tree right here, the picture of my horses, one of them. My colt got in there like a week ago and stripped it. Your critters will love these late winter. They will strip the bark. It's right before the sap flows. They love them. And I don't know what it does to their diet, but I imagine it's pretty good. And if Black Elk Speaks tried, all of his horses survive the winter, then it's probably worth doing. I'm from upstate New York, and we have a nonprofit, growbigtrees.org. Check us out.
Hello, I'm Jordy Lind. My wife Celine and I own and manage Northwind Farm near Hardwick, Vermont. We're fairly high elevated, hilly farm, and we pretty much can grow grass for about 3 months of the year. I'm pretty sure I'm not exaggerating. May 15th to September 15th or something like that. If it's a little dry or a warm spring, it might be shifted backwards some, but so, most of the dairy farms around us take the reasonable strategy that if there's that much non-grass time and only a little bit of grass time, well, they'll ignore the grass time and keep the cows in the barn all the time. We're trying to find a way to overcome that limitation of the growing season there and still build a farm that can be successful relying completely on grass, or I shouldn't say completely, relying heavily on grass. Megan asked if I'd talk about nutrient management on our farm. I think I'll spend a little bit of the time on that. That's the poop shooter. And we use a kind of crude, we have about 100 acres of home farm pasture. We milk it's been between 50 and high 90s of cows for 15 years or something like that. But we're actually newly seasonal. And if Leon hadn't talked about going seasonal and out wintering, I might have talked more about that, but he's the daddy and we're brand new to seasonal. We've been out wintering since the beginning because we don't have enough barns, not because it's cool. But anyway, we've cobbled together over the years a system for dealing with the water that the authorities make you impound and mix with manure on your farm if you take any of the water quality or nutrient management cost share deals, which I've always kind of seen as a mixed bag between things you probably can't afford to not at least think about going with their program and things that may make more headaches for you on your farm, or at least for me, than you had before. And so, they add a lot of concrete. Now all your roofs and barnyards and everything funnels into your handy dandy concrete lined manure pit. Ours happens to be a relatively small one. It's 165,000 gallons. I never wanted liquid manure. We've had one day when we hired tanker spreading, and the rest of the time we handle our liquid through that system. That's basically equipment that you'd see more often on a horticultural operation, cobbled together with basically a clear water irrigation pump, some crude attempts to separate the manure solids back. This has limited reach. You can't get everywhere. The water is pretty dilute of nutrients. It runs from like a 1/2 pound per 1,000 gallons to 2.5 pounds of nitrogen and about 1 pound or 1.25 pounds of phosphorus. It's pretty watery stuff. Grows grass like crazy. I think that wouldn't be a big surprise. The biggest thing actually has been the labor and fuel savings. My diesel that runs the pump has less than 500 hours on it from 16 years of spreading all my liquid every year. There's no compaction, no nothing like that. It's just it's handy in that way. It has its headaches. I got 2 minutes left. I'd just like to say on our farm, the thing that's most interesting to me that we're doing right now is just trying to get less confused between a medium input, medium output mindset, and the kind of low input grazing ideal that we'd always had in our minds as something we were also attracted to, and just choose one and do it. And, you know, try to tune out a lot of the variables that just confuse us. Try to keep it simple. We say right now a cow is going to eat on our farm. She's going to calve in March or April. She's going to eat about a ton of grain and about 14 4-foot round bales in the year. That gives her about a $1,600 feed budget to feed her through the year. And then the question is, how high can we drive the value of her milk production given that set nutrition diet, and not say, well, if we fed them more grain, they'd make more milk. If we fed them more hay, they'd make more milk. Hold that variable constant and try to push the other stuff through management. For us, that's taking the form of just tightening the ship on reproductive and herd management, trying to slim down, keep fewer heifers, maybe milk a few fewer cows, do better by them, match the forage, the grazable forage supply to the size of the herd in the most economically optimized way. And then we're trying to do things like that shooter and like in season light applications of poultry manure. We're organic, so that's our go-to purchase fertility input. We're trying to do things like that to intensify the production of grass in our system and try to, squeeze a little more revenue through the same system, but keeping those cows on an economic diet. And that's my little daughter pushing the cows in.
Good morning, Adam Ritchie, Cloudbrook Farm and Cloudbrook Grazing, and my name is spelled wrong there, but that's okay. And I'm standing here between you and lunch, so we'll keep it to 6 minutes. So we're I would say multi-enterprise farm. The part of it that keeps me busy is the targeted grazing business. So this past year was the first year where we were full-time targeted grazing with our sheep and goats. There was about, I think about 125 goats and about 150 sheep. And I would say the main focus of this will be one project in particular, which was grazing the ski slopes at Jay Peak. We used 150 no fence collars. It was a sort of a trial basis project where we grazed for 25 days and covered just shy of 25 acres. So I think to start, Jay Peak, for those of you who don't know, is in the northern part of Vermont. About 385 acres of cleared trails in total. So I think there's a lot of potential there to scale up a grazing operation. The no fence collars were a pretty key part of this. I don't know that it would have worked or worked all that well without them. I think a good chunk of this area would have been nearly impossible to fence with Electronet. Overall, I think the collars worked really well. There was some challenges as far as just the operation in general. One was the timing and sort of meeting the resort's vegetation management needs. So their typical vegetation management would be weed whacking the whole slope. They hire a crew of about 15 guys, and they cover the whole slope in 10 to 15 days. And they typically do that at the end of the season, right before they start making snow. And they need everything to be under about 4 inches to put snow on. We weren't really able to do that with the sheep and goats just because of the timing mostly. I think it's going to take multiple grazings in a season to come even close to that. The other challenge was predation. So if you're going to use virtual fence with small ruminants, you need to have some sort of solution for mitigating predation. We used one guardian dog for a group of 150, and that wasn't enough. We ended up, after this project, grazed for another month in another location where I know there's high predator pressure with 3 dogs, and we had no issues at all. So I think balancing the predator pressure and the guardian dog presence is pretty important. With this project in particular, it is a little bit of a challenge finding dogs that will be effective, but not be too aggressive towards people. So I think, typically a good guardian dog is going to be a little bit of risk. This area gets a lot of hikers and people walking their dogs, and we have good insurance, but obviously we don't want issues with the dogs. We now have 3 dogs that I think I'm confident that will be effective for next season. No video there. This was, I think, it was a big hit for the resort, especially. I don't think they were expecting the amount of enthusiasm from the public about this. It got a lot of media coverage. The Associated Press did a little story on it, and I had some folks that I know in the UK that saw the story on the news in the UK. So it got all over the place. There's some looking forward. I would say the long-term vision is to scale this up to be able to cover the entire resort. But there's some challenges in between and some questions in between that we need to answer first. Being able to meet their objectives, I think is going to take a little bit of better timing. The predation issue was another one, and then coming up with a better system for water, I think, is another challenge. We were using an ATV to haul water, which for this number of animals was fine, but as we scale up, I think that's going to become a little bit more of a challenge. But overall, I think it was a success in terms of determining whether the collars would be effective and just sort of getting a start to something that was mostly just an idea when we started. So, and that's it. Lunchtime.